in, so we do have a quorum. Bev is out. So we'll start with this famous statement here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revision in the order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of the public body. This meeting of the Housatonic Improvement Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. And the instructions are on the agenda. It does say no in-person attendance, although we have, I have clarified that with the town manager saying if you're comfortable, we can do so. But every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the town's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. So it is 6:35. Can I get a motion to open the meeting?
Make a motion to open the meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Eric?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aye as well, so we are now called to order at 6:35. So now the other things, same. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session and meeting of the public body and may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listings of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. And just a general housekeeping thing, as far as public comment goes, obviously for those that aren't familiar, we do have a citizen speak at the end of the meeting, but by all means, if you have a comment during the proceedings, you're more than welcome. Just let me know. I try to keep it as open as possible, following along with the great Steve Bannon. And also, last meeting ran to about 9 o'clock, but I know we got a lot of information to go through again, so it'd be great if we could try to keep this to about 8:30.
I'm gonna excuse myself because somebody's trying to find us outside.
Okay, we'll hold off just so we have an
No,
official
keep going.
form. Well, we need the official form in the room, so. I like the color of the house.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I got about 16 other sample colors in little jars, if anybody. It's coming through.
Remember that guy up on the hill years ago that wanted
To you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
took
yeah.
his neighbors off, so he painted like every side a different color or something.
Yeah, every little portion, right?
Yeah. It was a true painted lady.
Got Schmiegel Roofing there today, doing the flat roof, so.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, EPDM or some sort of
Yeah.
membrane.
Yep. The guy before me had it done, but with like some simple rollout roof, and it was just all crinkly and pushed on the right, and yeah, it was pretty bad.
Getting there. Yeah. She's looking good. Thank you. Yeah, they paved your front road right in front of you for you.
Gotta get somebody to go on Cottage Street.
Yeah. Well, if you know anybody in the town, you talk to them about getting sidewalks put in.
That'd be a nice one.
We're just waiting for just a moment, so we do have to wait for a quorum, so just bear with us for just a moment. Can everybody hear okay on? Patrick, you can hear us fine, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And the camera's actually working a little better today. Last week it wasn't always panning all the way over to you, Dan. It was kind of hovering on the other side, but it's working nicely now.
Ended that. I didn't want to be in the spot. I wanted it on there. That's,
She went to the Housatonic Fairgrounds.
oh, that's close.
She's underway.
All right. So our first order of business is the approval of minutes. So we do have several minutes that Angela has sent back out.
So I have a correction to one of the minutes that I did. I mentioned the repair work on Main Street, and I should have said cottage in Main. I think I said South Street. I don't know where I got that from.
What minutes are those? We can go right to that.
This is June 24th.
June 24th.
So
Okay.
I'll make that correction so that it's correct.
Okay. June 24th minutes, correction. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept those unless there's any other corrections or deletions or subtractions.
That's the only thing I noticed as well. So, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from June 24th, 2021
As amended.
as amended.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
As well. So June 24th, with that small correction of Main to Cottage is to the record. What's our next minute?
And then the next one, make a motion to approve the minutes written as written for 7/15/2021.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Eric?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Aye as well, so that's July 15th. Then our way back ones?
No, those we had already approved.
Oh, okay.
I just had to, I sent them in as a draft, I meant to send them in as minutes, so.
Okay, that's what that was, okay. Sorry, I probably should have read through that whole email, sorry. All right. Good, that catches us up on minutes too, and I believe we're all in final form, right? Is,
Pretty much, I just gotta send them in with the draft taken off.
Right, okay. We just, okay.
Yeah.
I know Jennifer sent out one email a while ago about that, just make sure we get those into official record. So we're gonna go to the new committee member, well, do you wanna wait for Louise?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll skip on the new committee member discussion. Louise Goldsmith, yes, okay, she'll be on our way shortly. So we can go right back into the Housatonic School. Last time we kind of left off, kind of just brainstorming, is where we left off at the last point. Does anybody want to kind of pick it up? Have anything further to add?
What I have to add that has things to do with the Housatonic schools is I have 3 waivers here.
Okay,
We just discussed setting up times to go through. So I figured I had been talking with Patrick, so we're gonna arrange to go through at a time. And so I just brought these in for committee members to sign. Angela, I know you've been through, so I wasn't sure if you needed one, but I got one for you, Matt.
Okay.
So I figure we can arrange for that and just talk with Sean. We can do it on different days just so there's no quorum issue. So.
and again, just a reminder to everybody, and those of you that might be looking to join the committee too, as far as certain open meeting law things, we as a committee, you can't, outside of an official meeting, you can't meet as more than a group of 2. 2 of you can meet to discuss things, like visit the school, but if there's 3 of you, it becomes an actual, you start running into some open meeting law things, so it's better to kind of discuss things. And if you do get accepted to the committee meeting, or to the committee, and there's a group email sent out, make sure you reply. Like if you want to talk to somebody, you have to reply to that person individually. Be careful to reply to all. You'll get a group information, but if there's some sort of discussion that starts via electronic means, you have to keep it to a specific person. Just as a housekeeping thing. Dan Casey. Sorry. That's good. Okay, yeah, so site visits I think are a great idea to get in and get it. Angela brought that up about actually getting an idea of it. As far as brainstorming, again, just to kind of reiterate where we talked, some of the things we talked about last time. Business incubators with affordable housing, kind of mixed use, keeping things as far as a community usage, without kind of, a lot of the term placemaker was brought back up. Childcare was also brought up. Parking again is going to always continue to be an issue throughout Housatonic, but I think there are going to have to be things that are going to be dealt with as we go along. I think everybody here is aware at this point that the school is its own separate entity. It was separated out in town meeting, so the park and the community center are two separate town-owned properties as well. So the school is just what it is. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know where we want to go. Maybe we're going to start taking some straw polls on some ideas, like what do we want to kind of eliminate? Is there things that we feel that we want to eliminate? Are there things that we feel as a group that we can definitely say we want to push forward to the architects and the rep?
So I agree. I think we should discuss things that should be eliminated. And as far as Patrick touched on it last time, as far as the school turning into whether it's all high-end housing or market rate housing, or in my opinion, even affordable housing. I just think the school becoming all housing, no matter what form it is, I think that eliminates. I personally feel that should be eliminated. I had thought about it because at the end of the day, I want to see the school building saved and used it somehow. I don't know if it being strictly housing is the way I want to see it saved. I do think, which we kind of touched on last week, whether it just needs to be a mixed use scenario, mixed use, whether it's community based as well, or just commercial spaces in there along with, all that other stuff we touched on. But I think it would take a lot away from the town center if it was just strictly housing. I'd like to see it encourage growth even around the area, incorporating with the mills. And although housing is definitely really needed in both Great Barrington and Housatonic, I think I would shy away from it personally, of it being all housing.
Just to clarify, you're not opposed to affordable housing in there as long as it's part of the mixed use.
Okay. Yes.
So I have a question, I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
So, has everyone been able to read the documents that were in this agenda, except for the PDFs, because they weren't openable, but anyway.
Yeah.
And I know it's a lot, but I'm just wondering, Patrick, have you had a chance to read them or review them?
I've not gotten through everything, but I'm through volume 1 of the master plan and a handful of other things. The Berkshire one document, the big one, I'm mostly through that one. So yeah, you're right, there is a lot, and I'm not through it all, but I'm definitely working my way.
How about you, Eric?
I had made it through the Berkshire one in the CET one.
The sense.
The set one, yes.
Dan, do you have a chance?
Yeah, so again, I'm probably about the same point as what it seems like everybody is. I've refamiliarized myself with the master plan, which is good, because it's been a while since I looked at it. So I did spend a lot of time on the master plan, but I did go through the Berkshire one, and I started the sets anyway.
Okay, so, that's good, it's good to know, because, what I have done in the last couple of weeks is read through documents that Eric brought that I hadn't been able, I didn't have them. And two of them really stuck out to me. One is the 2004 visioning session that was held for Housatonic.
Mhm.
And when I read through it, you know, I've read a lot of the things that we've been hearing. You know, keep the character of the village, be some kind of a focal point, love the park, you know, a lot of comments that really haven't substantially changed in the last 17 years. And the town of Great Barrington's master plan also backs up, you know, the use of this building in some way. But then the kicker for me was when I read the CDC Clark and Green proposal, I felt a little strange, because what we talked about at last meeting is exactly what they can come up with. And so I'm wondering, you know, where, I don't know where that went. And it was a little eerie to know that we've been having the same discussions and we came out with the same thing that an architectural firm has already come up with. I mean, even the floor plans were, you know, incubator space, housing, a couple of retail, it was all of what we talked about. So I'm just wondering if I see Ed Abrams on the call and Steve Bannon on the call, if there's any background that you might be able to share about that plan.
Actually,
Angela, what year was that?
You want that to talk, Andrew?
It was 2014, 2010, I'm sorry, yeah. So, you know, I feel like, we're kind of back at, I feel like we've gone full circle. And I wish this group had that in our hands months ago, because we kind of had gotten to the point where a lot of other people have already gotten to. Anyway, I would urge each of you to read that carefully and look at the floor plans.
yeah, Steve's the only one on the board that was there in 2010. That was even before my time, prior to my time there. So Steve, if you kind of chime in and give us your spin on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I've been through the Housatonic School too many times, but I think there's one thing to keep in mind. There's visioning of what people would like to see, and then there's realistically what we can do. And I don't mean what's possible to be done, but where we can get the money and actually do the process. So I think where we found the disconnect is many times we found really nice plans, but we haven't found the people, the money to do those plans. Like if you did all affordable housing, it's too small for that. You won't be able to find any money for that. So I think it's the wisdom of Solomon. We have to figure out something that people in Housatonic want, but then find people who are willing to take the ball and run with it at that point.
Yeah. Probably why we're really here.
Right.
Yeah, you, please, Tim.
Hi, Steve, this is Tim Geller.
Hey, Tim.
What you just expressed is actually one of the sort of myths about the school that have been propagated over the last, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years. The school is definitely not too small to be a hospital. It absolutely is not too small. It's not even too small for a small tax credit project if you did all housing. And if you don't do a tax credit project, there's a special category at PHCD for smaller scale projects under 20 units. They have special funding sources for. So I think rather than just assume, which is totally erroneous, to assume that it's too small for housing, I would encourage you to actually have someone do the homework about those sources.
So I would say two things, Tim. You and I are not going to agree on this because other people don't agree with you on this either. But the second part of this is one of the things the people in Housatonic, and this isn't everyone, but when we've had visioning sessions, they've expressed the same things Eric just expressed. And that was, yeah, housing would be fine in there, but they don't want to see 100% housing. It's not everyone in Housatonic. We can't speak for everyone, but at visioning sessions, it's been very clear they want to see some sort of mixed use.
That's absolutely true, and if you look at the proposal, in fact, every proposal we've ever made about the school has been mixed use. It's never been 100% housing.
Yes, that's true.
The reason that you expressed is that people in the village have always expressed that they'd like to see something in addition to housing. So a mixed use with housing, affordable housing being part of the component is absolutely financially viable.
The first time, Tim, if you remember, when we, select board went round and round on this, there were a number of people in Housatonic who did not want to see housing in there, especially affordable. And the select board at that time decided not to go with affordable housing. I was in the minority, I will say, but it was decided not to have any housing in it at all the first time.
So what strikes me is just in the last few days, the Eagle Mills project in Lee has just been granted $16.5 million for a mixed-use project. I don't know if all of you saw that in the Berkshire Eagle.
All the headlines,
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to read all of that.
Right, and they're gonna do affordable housing and market rate housing and retail, and, you know, it's the same kind of mix that we've been kind of, you know, inching around. So, you know, I don't know what to do with this, except, you know, if this were my project alone, I would say, let's reopen that conversation. Let's go back and look to see if that kind of mix, which a lot of work has already gone into, could work. It's mixed use, it's got community space, it's got incubator space, it's got housing, you know, it kind of hits all the buttons that we talked about.
Yeah, I'm hearing a common theme being tossed back and forth, you know, started last week and even tonight that we can keep circling back to, and one of the main reasons we're here is to try to set parameters for the charrette. I would feel very comfortable putting that as a top priority of the parameters we set. A mixed use space that would include living space, aka affordable housing, a community space, and commercial space. And I think it's, you know, building's only so big, we know it is. So obviously there's those constraints too. And it'd be nice to kind of see that the architects kind of play with those variables in different levels, you know, going from say 50% affordable housing to 25% affordable housing, and see what they can kind of come up with that way, and tease some things out within those three parameters. I think to me that seems like something that would be a good direction to kind of go. I guess the question in the hope is that whatever comes out of the charrette, you know, what kind of Steve is saying and kind of combining what Tim is saying is, Steve is saying find the person and Tim's saying they're out there, and then reading what happened in Eagle Mills. It's just, that would be the major point to our recommendation is, I would assume, right? You know, how do we propose this so that right person comes in?
It's the marketing, right? So we're using the charrette to create designs or, you know, ideas, but then using it to market the opportunity that's there, right? And how do we get it out? How do, and going back to the charrette and us eliminating or things like the other thing, as Chris Rumbold said when he was here, like, we do want to narrow it a bit, but we don't want to eliminate everything, right? So I guess that's, we got to try to steer the vision in a way that we want, but also have that the town wants, that everybody wants, but also not just hurt everybody, like you're saying, and that fine mix. So I do think we have to, as a committee, and come up with certain things that we're not sure that we don't want, but then kind of leave it somewhat open-minded for the charrette and the RFP in a sense. But the RFP with the charrette, we're using it as a marketing tool. Say, hey, these are possibilities that, whether it came from the 2010 proposal or maybe, an architect shows up with a whole different view of it, right? So.
And I guess in that marketing strategy, that we don't necessarily need to put an RFP on.
Well, I don't think that's gonna be up to us, that's gonna be on the town.
But if our recommendation is to go this direction, that's not RFP.
Yeah, but we're not gonna physically put the RFP together.
No.
So one of the goals, and I don't have the document in front of me, but we talked about what are the goals of the charrette.
Right.
One is to provide ideas that the town can then market to potential developers, right?
Right.
So this is just one step towards that. I just feel a little funny talking to, or having a charrette happen with architects who haven't necessarily seen this, when architects have already done work on it. It's, I don't know, we should, I think, at least give that plan to the architects that are gonna volunteer. If that's what we wanna do. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I guess I was thinking we were gonna preload these architects or whoever's involved with the charrette with all the information we possibly get, because it sure seemed like, she wanted it, right? Because she kept coming back saying she needed more info, so. And I apologize, I have had this, and I thought I had sent it out, but I miscategorized it, but that is, I'm with you, like, this does seem like the plan that we've talked about, or, all the same ideas and the vision we have for it. The one thing about the RFP, and I could be wrong, and I was talking to some developers, and they were like, I was trying just to even get them to come to one of our meetings, just to hear or maybe put in their 2 cents. But they felt that it, for lack of a better word, was like bad etiquette for them to get involved before there was an RFP. So I don't know if that's like a standard thing, or if that was just a thing that he said to get me to stop bugging him or what. But I know he was they're a serious a group, so.
I think one of the recommendations that, where we're not gonna be necessarily writing the RFP, I think whatever recommendations we do make, we should certainly go into an RFP. So in a sense, we might not be doing the technical language, in a sense we are, right? If that's the path we so choose to go. Patrick, your thoughts?
Well, what I'm thinking about is the other side of it, where how we're going to distinguish, or if we're going to distinguish, whether this is a public-private partnership or a town-funded effort or anything like that. I'm assuming public-private partnership, and maybe the answer to my question is we don't determine that, and that the town will. But that's kind of what's coming to my mind at the moment.
Well, I think we could answer part of that by determining whether or not we want it to remain in public hands, and then what that means. It could be private-public partnership, or it could be a strict town development kind of thing. Seems like, again, I think if I'm remembering the conversation from last week, it did seem like there wasn't a whole lot of support for selling the building outright to just a private developer, if I remember that correctly, at least from this committee.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts on that is I could be flexible there. I don't know what the restraints or what kind of restrictions the town can put on something that once it's sold that they can enforce. But, I personally don't know that I would write off, a private developer. I don't think I can write off a private developer coming in, buying it outright. It would be nice to have guarantees that they would follow the outline that we had set. But I mean, I guess we've learned in the past that they don't always do that, but it would be nice that if, and I don't know this, but it would be nice that if, it's possible that there's been safeguards put in place since then, that we could have some. Or, you know, and then these are questions I would have to ask them. I guess, I obviously, I would rather it be a public-private thing, but I guess if it came to the buildings getting knocked down or it's getting sold to this developer, I think it would be a hard decision for me to not, you know, can't say it's a cut and dry answer for me right now.
So if I understand how it works, an RFP is issued and it's pretty specific about what the parameters are. And then the town would have the right to say yes or no. So if a developer, let's say, came back and wasn't really gonna follow it, the town would say, no thanks, right? Then I have a question for Steve Bannon, because that building is a brownfield site. Chris Renwold last meeting said that opens up the ability for potential funding, public funding. So if it were just a private developer, is that same kind of funding available, or does it have to be a town, like a public-private partnership?
If it is a brownfield site, which my memory fails me on that, I know there was asbestos, but I didn't realize it was a brownfield site. Most of the funding all of the funding that town's gotten for brownfields, such as Reed's Cleaners, have been because it's a town-owned building. But I don't know the technicality, whether a private developer would be eligible for that or not.
Can I make a
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that my experience is that any financing that's available to towns is also available to nonprofits. Likely not private developers for private developers, but nonprofit developers. And in fact, there are advantages to using a nonprofit developer because you wouldn't have to pay prevailing wage.
You wouldn't have to pay for,
You wouldn't have to pay prevailing wage if you.
So Tim, you would know better than I, the federal money that the town's gotten would be available to private developers?
You mean the brownfield money?
Yes,
Did that come through mass development?
I thought it was, I won't say you know better than I do. I thought it was directly through the federal government, but it could have been funneled through Mass.
Yeah, it's usually channeled to the state. You know, Steve, I don't know the exact program, so I don't think I could say categorically. I'm just saying generally those funds are available to either municipalities or nonprofits.
Steve, if my broken memory serves me correctly, the firehouse, we had similar discussion on that as well, because that was, the town was on the hook for some of the remediation at the old fire station.
Right, the town did pay for remediation on the fire station, you're correct.
And part of that was because the private developer could not get any funding sources for it. I think that's one part, if I remember, that was the discussion of why we decided to, well, we're on hook for it anyway, but.
I would ask Tim, because I'm a little fuzzy on this. Is Housatonic School actually a brownfield site?
Yeah, it is. We
That's-
checked with Chris Rebel last time
Yeah,
we met.
he did mention that it was.
And it's because of lead paint and asbestos.
Yeah, it met it.
Okay, I knew it had lead paint and asbestos, but I didn't realize it qualified as a brownfield site. My memory failed me on that one.
Listed in one of the,
Yeah.
a few of these things as well.
Yeah.
Let's see.
One version of.
That's community, Steve. Because the state used to delineate between asbestos and other contaminants. And brownfields money could not be used for asbestos. As we ran into that at Blog Homes.
Oh, really?
Okay,
So, but it's certainly, if it's a brownfield site, there's a whole other set of funds that are available.
Right.
I'm surprised that it's a brownfield site. Chris would know much better than I would. My memory completely fails me on all the discussions we've had about Housatonic School. Dan, I don't know if you remember that being discussed at all.
I think that was something that came out of the phase one, Steve. I think that's once it met that threshold. But Chris was pretty confident that it was a brownfield.
I would never doubt Chris, and I guess there's a funny part of that is that's probably a positive because it opens it up to remediation money.
That wasn't in Great House Park either, though. He didn't mention that, because he.
I don't remember seeing that in there.
Mediation.
I've never heard of those.
Yeah, well, it is in one of those other documents. Interesting.
So I don't have time tomorrow to take that plan and copy it and get it to the whole committee, but, I could do it on Monday. Cause I really think that everybody should look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to do that, and then, maybe at the next meeting, we're ready to really, get into the weeds a little bit.
That's the one you did with Clark, that's Clark and Green.
Yeah.
And that's the one, that Steve McAllister did that with you?
Yeah, it was Stefan.
This one.
I think Stefan too.
Are these like actual proposals that architects gave in the past, are those accessible online at all? Or do you guys just have paper copies somewhere?
Well, technically, if it was a public document, it is available somewhere in the town clerk's office. You would have to,
Go to the town online.
yeah, most of the stuff is not online. Yeah.
Dan, I can make copies of that for everyone.
I probably have a visiting question.
I do have a digital thing center either way.
I can make like 20 copies, whatever you want.
Yeah, I do.
No?
Oh, sorry.
The brownfields question is good.
It is, yeah, it's just,
You talk to somebody at the state and ask them.
yeah, we will get that clarified. Maybe we'll just, should just send another email to Chris, just to confirm that, so we can put that to rest.
Or, oh, it definitely is, he said it at the last meeting.
Yeah, but, yeah,
Because I found it in one of those documents.
I did too, it's in one.
And I was surprised, and so I asked Chris to explain that, and he said, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But what we might wanna do is, I don't know, is it worthwhile finding out if there's actually still funding sources for brownfields?
I think, wait a minute, I'll check my notes, hold on.
That's fine,
He
because it could be at
said-
one point if a lot of these programs have gone away. Are you familiar?
I
They
think
still
that,
sit around?
I think that some of the money is at the street.
It's still brownfields.
Do this. I think some of that is good. There are state sources, not some, there's federal sources.
Yeah.
And, brownfield is, you can call anything brownfield. The question is, does this site qualify for brownfield funding?
That would be the question.
And that's development.
So Chris said that, the brownfields designation opens up that building for grant money, and that phase one was already done, and that phase two environmental study could be done. So that's what I had written, so I think that's it's like a cherry on top of the rest of it, so,
Yeah, that's,
you know.
that's what I had.
My thoughts exactly. Why didn't we start remediation during Bill's project, question mark?
Community meeting about both sites, I believe on beginning of August.
Yeah,
I was trying to find it
August 2nd, brownfield assessment.
as well, so.
August 2nd is a brownfield assessment meeting. That's not a town meeting. It's something else that Chris was putting together. But I should say it's not a select board meeting or a planning board meeting. It's outside of that framework. Steve, did you have another comment? I'm sorry. Or was that just your mic was open?
No, my mic was open. I apologize.
You gotta watch out for those hot mics that get you in trouble.
I have
I
one,
don't say anything important enough to get in trouble.
I have one quick comment. This is Ed.
Go ahead.
I missed your last couple of meetings, so this may have come up, but just keep in mind, this could be, and I assume you have, the last shot at the gold ring. So I agree with you. It'd be great to not have it 100% housing, because I think the center of Housatonic really could use something more vibrant. But on the last go round of this RFP, which was pretty wide open, nobody offered us even $1. So just, I don't disagree at all with what you want to do. Just careful, I guess.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it is something I think that's in all of our back of our minds is that.
So, Ed, could I ask a more pointed question? What should we be careful about?
Any kind of limits on what a prospective buyer could do to it. So if you say absolutely not 100% housing, you might have just shut somebody out. I don't think necessarily so. At some point you're looking at, would we rather have 100% housing or demolition? I guess is what I'm saying. You may end up in that position.
So with the charrette, if we ask the architects to do sort of an overlay of potential, cost income scenarios, they would be able to broad brush it, I would think.
I'm not sure the architects are going to be willing to do any kind of ROI or cost benefit analysis for us. I think that they're going to be more along the lines of just design ideas rather than really putting, getting in the heads of a developer and what they would want to do or what they'd be willing to do, I guess is more the point. I may be wrong, but that's my sense is I'm not sure they're going to want to wade into that pool.
Architects, setting the program and doing charrette, architects are two different things. The architects really need some parameters of program coming in, because that's what they'll design to do. They're not the ones that imagine programming. So if you could lay out a palette, your 6 or 8 or 10 priorities in town, but they're going to need some kind of program to respond to. I mean, they're architects, right? They're designers.
Correct, and I think that's what we're trying to do here, Tim, is we're trying to get to some of a lot of those parameters.
Yeah.
Set it up. Yeah, we're not gonna go into just what's in there. It's not a visioning board or whatever you call it.
One more thing about the charrette that I'm wondering, and I think that we've discussed this several meetings back, but as we kind of create the parameters for the charrette, we are not excluding the possibility of demolition and reuse of the lot within this design exercise, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I think since the beginning of this, I think we've been trying to say that we're gonna stay open-minded to every potential. But I think if we're gonna put that out there as, you know, give us some ideas of what it's gonna be like if you tear it down, we still have to put parameters on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You know, just as Tim's saying, you can't just give them a blank canvas and say, what would you?
Right.
So I think that has to be a discussion we need to have in the next couple meetings as well, too, is what, if it were to be dismantled, what were some of the things that we feel the community would want and need then? So, but it's a good point too, but I don't know. I'm just hypothetical here, please don't anybody take this any
Yeah,
more than it is.
I guess, yeah, exactly, hypothetical.
Right,
Like, if, you know, we go in 2 phases of it, you know, let's give them guidelines of restoring the thing and how we envision it, mixed use, this, that. Give them the guidelines for that, but if you know, we do wanna give them a set amount of time, why not give them a clean slate, right? Almost, besides the parking lot. Yeah, you know, I guess, obviously, yeah, I don't know.
Well, last meeting, we, at Patrick's suggestion, and I think it was a great one, the of luxury housing.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
are we at a point where we want to say as a group to see a way that the building is used? I mean, that's our first choice. Because I mean, if we're talking about demolition and then all the different things that could happen if the building were demolished, that's like a whole nother charrette.
Yes, that's kind of what I was,
Yeah.
that's why I'm trying to be careful about where we go with that, right? And saying, without saying, at some point, we might have to deal with an elephant in the room saying we might have to make a choice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we may choose to exclude that option and leave that as Angela says, for a separate thread, or not comment at all and see what they come back with and say, you know, this, if we tore this down and made this, I don't know, an amphitheater for public performance, then that would be great. And just, you know, not have this committee say one way or the other, you know, so we have a few choices there, right? Dictate that the building is kept specifically and outright allow that it could be not kept, or remain silent and see what they come back with. But again, we, you know, as I think the point was made several times, we don't want it to be too broad, or else we won't. But it needs to be a little more targeted to be successful.
But what you were saying, yes, I think that's a good point, as far as that's our focus. So again, at some point, we can start making a list of things we want, and we can certainly take votes on those if the committee so desires, and certain things. We can wait a couple more meetings and put it all together at once, or we can do it in a piecemeal kind of fashion.
Well, you know, it's already the end of July, and this charrette might be hopefully in September, so we don't really have a couple more meetings.
I know. I know.
So I think, we got a meeting coming on August 12th, right, is what we decided, another one here, hybrid function. I mean, I am all for, at that meeting, maybe, we'll go through this one, because we got some other items on it, and maybe at the next meeting, we do, whether it's a formal poll or a straw poll on whether we want to eliminate any more time spent on talking about the demolition of the building. And then that will leave us with possibly one or two more meetings after that before the charrette is what we're thinking, right?
Realistically, probably only one more meeting, and that last meeting should be let's say they're meeting on the 12th, and then we meet again on say the 26th or the 23rd, 24th.
So I think that by the end of the meeting on the 12th, we should have sort of marching orders for the charrette, because Carrie has to promote it to her group of volunteer architects.
Right.
We can't wait till the end of August and then all of a sudden shoot her, you know, parameters, and then she's gonna have to scramble, so we need to give her a little time.
Okay, so August 12th, I think then we have to come up with some sort of, well, we've kind of gotten an outline of agenda, but an agenda with, as far as the charrette itself, the charrette agenda. Not a meeting agenda, but a charrette agenda.
Yeah.
That's gonna have to be our goal, which means then maybe in the next hour or so, we're gonna have to start.
Well, I'll jump right in, I mean, I'm not shy about it. I think that, if there's an economic way to make that building useful, that we should do everything in our power to make it a great redevelopment of a historic building. I know there are huge, you know, issues with the building. It's gonna need a lot of money dumped into it. But I really think based on some of the, resources that we've had for the last few weeks, there are lots of examples of successful redevelopments in small towns all across the country. So I would try to save the building as long as it can be used in a good way, you know, in a productive, appropriate way.
Do you wanna make that into a motion? Oh. I'm asking if you think, we can make
I
it formal.
don't know that we need a motion as much as just, you know, what do you guys think? I mean,
Okay.
if we were around the table and we didn't have Zoom and we had, you know, we'd be talking to each other about it, so.
I am fully behind, I'm 100% for saving the building. Like, my idea, I do not want to see the building demolished. That's pretty, yes. So, it's hard for me to focus on even that thought. So I am all for not wasting any more of our time, considering that, I guess. And focusing on this, last few meetings that we have, moving forward with getting all the information together that we need, charging forward and trying to drive this to the goal line, not only for the charrette, but, you know, get the shiniest RFP with all the glamour on it out to the public. You know.
Patrick, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm willing to make a motion that we, as a committee, table the idea of demolition of the school and direct the participants in the charrette to only entertain reuse of the space.
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Eric?
Aye.
Andrew?
I,
Patrick?
Aye.
I as well. All right, so
Tabling, that's what I was looking for.
thank you, yes. Essentially what that means is that we, at this point, we're no longer gonna discuss demolition of the building at this point. All right, good. So we move forward on something on topic. So, so our main focus for the charrette is gonna be a primary use, reuse of the building. And just again, just a little housekeeping thing, because the motion was made to table, it means that more discussion. You can't just go, oh, by the way, so that everybody's aware of what table it means. Doesn't mean it can't be brought up, we just can't discuss it anymore. Anyway, all right. So maybe we could start getting the kind of, all these thoughts kind of collated into kind of some sort of, something we can look at. We've talked about affordable housing or some sort of housing. Do we want to put housing in as a topic that we should be covered? Do we want to narrow it down to affordable housing?
If we're discussing a mixed-use area, and I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I'm not opposed to it being, it could even be a mix. I guess I'm looking to see whatever triggers the most funding. I don't know how that works. So like, even if it was possible, if they said, in that one proposal we're talking about, 2010, I believe it was 11 affordable housing units. And so I don't know if say they did 6 affordable housing and 6 market rate, if that's even a possibility, but I'm fine with it being affordable and market rate, like a mixture of it. But as long as it's only a portion, like,
Right.
maybe 30.
Yes, I think we're pretty much all in agreement that we don't want to see just luxury apartments.
So I don't know that we need to limit it any more than that, personally. So,
Leave it open as the parameter of housing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, I know I brought up at the last meeting was that the housing would be sort of live workspace, and, sort of incubator space for artists and makers who might need space to apply their craft. Again, I think affordable housing and market rate housing can include that. I don't, but it's like almost too detailed. We can't know what is gonna work economically. We can just say to the architects, will this building work for this? And then it'll be up to whoever responds to an RFP to make the numbers work.
Okay, a couple other things that we discussed in a couple different forms. A community space, which could include something like a childcare or public space, public offices, things like that. Is that, again, how do we want to, what would be the best approach on that?
I think it would be, it just seems like childcare or some sort of public community space. It's almost like you have to, just by the location where it's pinched in between the Hoosie Dome and the park. Some sort of mixture at the camp, like even you see it now with, I guess it's Berkshire South there doing the camp and all the kids down there during the summer. It just so easily ties in that we just put that down as a line item, right? As far as focusing on the surroundings and trying to make this community space tied in with the other two around there.
Kind of as I mentioned it, as I said it out loud, the idea of childcare, so it seems like it's a community need, so you can satisfy that community need, but at the same time, you can turn it into some sort of revenue source too. Not obviously, it's not a huge revenue source. It's not a, but you could try to get a private company in there to run the daycare program, but yet at the same time, it fulfills that need for just a thought.
I do remember, however many years ago it was, 2-3 years ago, when we had a meeting at Uzi Dome discussing, it was right after the Gray House thing fell apart, I guess, we were discussing it. And a lady from Berkshire South got up and was trying to shy away from saying that it would be a good place for daycare there. Then there's a bunch of discussions on it, but I don't have any kids myself, but know a bunch of people with young kids. And it's just impossible to find space on campus, whether it's, she stated that they had spaces open there, and maybe that particular day they did, but it's been my experience from listening to people that they don't have readily available space there for all the kids, that parents need it for them to be working during the summer, or just to give the kids something to do to get them out of the house. So I do think, as we know, Housatonic seems to go in waves as far as young families there, young kids running around, and it seems like there's a lot more. Again, the trend of kids in Housatonic is on the way up.
So another thing we can look further into, and again, we don't have to solve all of this tonight, but just something again to think about, bringing up again. The public part of it is, one thing that we've talked about with select board members is once the renovations to the community center are done, potentially having some sort of meetings, whether it just be our meetings or have a select board meeting there once a month or something like that too. Thinking of that, do we want to have, think about including some sort of space in there that the town could use for overflow offices? Brought it up about the building inspector. Michelle maybe brought it up last week.
Michelle brought it up last
About
week.
the building inspector, and again, there's, if anybody's been in the building inspector's office, Ed's plans are just all over the place, and even, so constantly looking for space to just meet with people. Again, is this something that could be included in that space where, or that we want to ask to be included in that space? Is set aside some sort of space where the town can still have functioning part of it, whether it be, again, a permanent office, or again, it's a revolving office of whatever.
The
Something
town
that you
has rented
rented
office space before as well, right?
What's that?
I said the town has rented office space before as well, so.
Right, but just again, hypotheticals, like for example, like say every, the building inspector is there at the Housatonic school every, say Monday or Friday of every week and something like that, or, and they can have extra storage space there, or, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's another town department that might be staffed there to help, and then Wednesdays, reopen or whatever. So, something like that, like a revolving, I don't know how that works. So logistically for the town itself, that's something obviously Mark would have to deal with. But have some sort of permanent presence.
Yes, well, we could, Steve, I'm gonna ask Steve again and again, has the town made any plans to expand the space that it's using now into other locations, or has it defined a need for that?
There's never enough space in the town hall, if that's what you're asking. And I think in the last iteration of the RFP, there was talk about using part of the first floor, the ground floor, for an office for whether it's the police or building inspector or whatever. So I don't think the town would say no to it.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle has a.
We could,
sorry,
I was just gonna say, we could say that we're looking for at least 2 or 4 offices, if that would work in the space, and leave it at, I don't think we can, plan for the town.
No, right.
But
I think
we
that's
can
one
say, we can just say to the architects within the charrette, see if you can fit in 4 offices or whatever.
That would be used for
Yeah,
time
But I
use.
think it's premature to figure out who the tenants are gonna be when we don't even have a plan yet.
No, understandable, again, that's why I'm sure,
Yeah.
it's just late my brain things, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Louvier, 70 Division Street. With regard to my suggestion that perhaps town hall offices could go in there, there has been chatter over the years of crowding at our current town hall. Dan's suggestion regarding, the building inspector maybe be there Mondays and Tuesdays, blah, 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 like that. The little bit of difficulty with that is, and I've experienced it myself professionally, is where your materials are in. It's the one file that you didn't bring with you to your satellite office that you need that day. I would like to see some permanency, whereas whatever departments at the town hall that need more space would be relocated to Housatonic School. And I've had discussions with, and have said, oh, those offices that may not need constant contact with the town manager's office. But as we've seen over the last year, departments can Zoom just as easily as what we're doing right now. In my job, administration Zooms with department heads and that sort of thing. So, and also, depending on traffic, it's a 5-minute car trip back to the town hall. So it certainly is something feasible. Personally, I feel it's something that in the very near future will be a discussion before the voters, whether it's expanding town hall or finding more space for town hall employees. Remember, we had the building inspector, I think the Board of Health was as well in the old firehouse, which really wasn't all that safe to be there. It was not good. And that though they do come with a lot of files, that's for sure. And they took up space, moved over to the town hall. So it's something that would be among my prime choices. I also feel it would give some connection in our town government between Great Barrington and Housatonic. Knowing that the town of Great Barrington leadership and government is willing to invest in the village of Housatonic by putting some staff there. So, if we have staff saying, oh, I don't want to go to Housatonic, how can we expect business people to start businesses in Housatonic or people to move there? So I just feel it's for me, it's a natural conduit to connect to the two communities. So that's my opinion on it.
And thank you, Michelle, for your comments. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to the notes from last. A couple other things we're going to need to talk about again at some point, and I don't know if it's probably gonna need to be part of the shred, is the actual parking, not of Housatonic, but parking outside of the school itself. It's a very small lot, although there is space behind the building. If somebody's willing to bring in several hundred yards of fill, there's probably a lot of space behind the building. So, I don't know how we want to try to include that in the parameters with the architects as well. But I think it's important for them to realize that needs to be developed as well, or looked at as well too. And I think we have to be very clear as to the actual physical parameters that we want. Are we saying the plot that was laid out by town via town meeting, is that the parameters? Because we don't want to get rid of any of that sledding hill, or are we willing to give this or that kind of thing to make something more easy?
So
I would be
last-
hesitant to cut into that, into the existing park plan, but not hesitant to do, you know, like you said, bring the fill in or create something in the back, or even, eliminate going up the hill, you know, the amount of land between the fence barrier and the street, you know, and suggest if we are concerned about parking, you know, diagonal parking, going in up the street or something along those lines, so, you know, maybe people have to walk a little bit to get to the building or, you know, and then that can incorporate with, you know, the development of, you know, the corner market or, you know, it just helped that whole street out. It knows in, I mean, I don't know the measurements, but I'm sure you can get a lot of help with the Who's Dome basketball, Who's Hoops and stuff. I mean, I guess I would give up land there more than, I guess. Is what I was saying.
So one of the things Chris said last time was that we could have a parking study done. So, I think we're getting too detailed. Also, Chris Rembold shared with us, and it's in the shared folder, an alternate parking design that had been done a while ago. And there's also, yep, it's in there. And also, there's, you know, if there were a parking study done and there was a whole streetscape parking or streetscape study done, maybe one lane of Pleasant Street could be converted into diagonal parking and it could be a one-way street. Who knows? I don't think we need to solve that right now.
Yeah. Right, and you're right, we don't need to solve that, but again, I'm just trying, you know, my intention of the point, or my point was to make sure that we talk about the outside of the building within the, at the shore. I think you have to encompass all of that. And maybe one of our recommendations, or part of our recommendations, is for the select board to actually conduct that part of the study. Or we see where the charrette goes and then we.
No, I agree with the charrette, not only should include the interior, but the landscaping of the outside or the, like you're saying. I agree with you.
Michelle, do you still have your hand up or did we just not take it down?
I have a comment, Dan, with regard to a parking study.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Michelle Louvier. At the last meeting of the HIC, my better half Bruce Louvier brought up the lot near the brick house. It's a public street going up along the brick house, and there's a lot there, and it seems to be a Bermuda Triangle as to who owns it, which I believe it is owned by the town of Great Barrington or Housatonic. And I would like that cleared up because we don't want to be considering trying to solve a problem where there isn't one. And if there's a lot there, for example, again, growing up in Housatonic, streets up and down, cars up and down Pleasant Street, Front Street, everywhere, because it was a vibrant community back when I was growing up. But in the wintertime, you need to get cars off the street if you're, and that sort of thing. That lot isn't that far away. People need to walk. People are going to gyms to exercise, but they don't want to walk 5 feet. So I think that lot has to be looked at as whether it's a viable lot or not. And I'll keep bringing it up until we find out definitively who owns it and whether residents of Housatonic can, if there's apartments at Housatonic School or businesses, whether it can be used.
I think that's probably an easy thing to find out. We could probably ask Chris. It might take him some time to find the actual deed, you know, but.
I do know during one planning meeting, there was a focus on Housatonic. And I think it was when they were talking about non-conforming uses in Housatonic. And, you know, that little Bermuda Triangle pops up and, oh, who owns that? You know, does the town of Great Barrington? And there wasn't a definitive answer then. So, like I said, I just want to know who owns it, because if it's public, it's useful. So we need to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I feel that Pete might say that he owns it, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably about,
A few people that would.
or he owns it by, you know.
And also, the town of Great Barrington plows it. So we have to ask, why is the town of Great Barrington plowing something if it isn't ours?
Right. Good point. Yeah, we'll put an official request in to find that out. Again, it might take a little bit of time to actually figure that out, but I'll put in an official question to, Chris and Mark about that. Just to clarify where Water Street actually ends and if it's actually town owned or somebody that
Thank you.
anymore. What's that, Michelle?
Oh, I just said thank you.
Work on that for you too. Because we're gonna need to know, because it could, further down the road, it could be advantageous to us to know that. Anything else that you guys wanna think about, including or discussing regarding the school at this moment? Anybody in the audience, whether it be remote or in person, have any comments or questions regarding the school itself, school building?
Can I?
Yes, Denise,
Please.
please.
The booklet that I'm gonna make copies of, is comments. It has some really interesting plans that were already brought forward. And, I'm gonna make copies so everyone can look at them, but it lays out apartments. Which look really, it's very interesting. And, when do you have to do the shred by?
We don't know the exact date of Shrek, but we're gonna try to have it done sometime in September. It's gonna be up to them. They're gonna tell us the date.
Because my thoughts are bottom level retail and offices for town hall, and then upstairs apartments. That would be a nice mix of use assortment. Anyway, that's just, thank you.
Thank you.
So speaking about housing, just wondering what conversations have been had regarding any kind of support services for that housing, whether it's a coffee shop or restaurants or, I mean, I would love to see a critical mass of restaurants in Great Barrington, so that is somewhere, oh, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? Let's go to Housatonic. I mean, we've got Craig, we've got maybe something coming in to the Houston market, I think, special use, although I'm not sure how that could contribute to a nighttime scene, and the brick house. But, you know, people, in my experience, do like to have some services when they are housing, so I don't, just coming in, I don't know.
No, understandable, yeah, so it's
That.
it's part of a bigger conversation. And I know in the past, just in general, like the proposed, affordable housing, or the housing on North Plain Road, one of the discussions there now was not just services like you're talking about, but also, services such as bus stops and things like that too, you know, and accessibility to those kind of amenities. And going a little bit further, things like broadband and telecommunications services, and obviously adequate water and sewer upgrades and things like that too. Well, you know, how do all those things kind of tie in together when you're talking about housing? This group hasn't really kicked a lot of those ideas around. Probably, like I said, that it's probably part of the bigger discussion once we get an idea of what we're gonna kind of do with that school. It's certainly something we do need to consider. But I think it's our hope that whatever happens at that school starts the ball rolling, as Angela said, for those kind of things. You know, building and they will come and you have all those middle spaces. If you get something viable in it may prompt somebody to start developing some of the undeveloped space in the middle. But thank you for your time, appreciate it. Trevor? Go ahead.
Thank you. Trevor Forbes, 325 North Plain Road. I just wanted to add a comment that I like the idea of actually at least having some representation from the town hall in Houstonic. I think that's a great idea because it actually helps to basically bind the two communities together. I think it really is that would be a great testament and a great sort of idea for Houstonic itself. And I think if you actually had that with people who are there, regularly during the week, maybe some form of coffee shop or something like that underneath, alongside it, then again, talking to the previous comment, you're beginning to put in facilities that other people might then find a reason for coming into Houstonic and using. So I think it's a great idea. And I know you can't prescribe that for the town of Great Barrington, but I think as a recommendation, it's really very solid. So great discussion. Thank you very much.
For your comments, Trevor. Anybody else? Okay, so, where do we want to go from here with this, going back to our board? We've started an outline, I think, tonight. Does the board feel comfortable by our next meeting, end of our next meeting, we can have all of that set in stone? And
I do. I feel that we have a pretty good outline, opposed to adding more things like services, but I think we've got it pretty well. Our intentions are pretty obvious to me. And I think we leave, we got mixed use idea there. We got our thoughts on housing there, our community space, and the fact that we're just saying mixed use leaves a lot open, right? And in an attempt to not narrow it down too much, I'm pretty with those statements.
we obviously still have a lot more material to go through in the next couple of weeks. And I hate to do this. The committee feels that we need to be able to get as much information as possible to make an informed decision. At this point, obviously there's the little things like the Water Street, things like that, just clarifying that. Is it worth the size of getting and actually identifying, maybe not for the short recommendation, identifying funding, like public funding sources like for the brownfield sites? Do we want to go that far?
I don't think we need to do that.
Not for the charrette, but I mean for our recommendation to the select board.
I think there's so much that we don't know that will, once we get the direction the building's gonna go in, and the town puts together an RFP, it's gonna open up all these doors, and we could go, it's like a full-time job to do that.
Probably.
Yeah.
If it could be housed at the Houstonic School.
Great Barrington Redevelopment Authority.
I don't know that it would hurt for us. I mean, obviously we got a bunch of reading there. Good cycle. It probably wouldn't hurt for us to go through an existing RFP, and see how it was done, and maybe an RFP, for an outside building, and just see how that, a successful RFP, I guess, in the past one that is not drawn attention. I mean, not for any RFP, but maybe just for us to and just educational purposes, right?
So
I've scanned a few of them, but I just think it's.
there's one, a shared folder that the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission put together for the school. So it's there in that folder.
Yep, okay. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because I know you put it out there, but I haven't gone back to that. I'll have to go back. Thank you. And is that open to anybody?
As long as it's wants access to it, they just need to ask me and I'll add them to the, yeah. I don't know how to make it public, but it's, some of that is in your agenda. Well, we need to figure out.
Okay, so we'll shift gears just a little bit. We have our committee member discussion. There are 4 that have put their names in, which unfortunately always makes it uncomfortable for the board members that do have to make the recommendations. And I don't know if we want to wait for Lee to come back next week, our next meeting, so she can say something too, to hold off on a vote. But while we have the other 3, I thought maybe each one of them could take a minute, do some, just give their thoughts and why they might want to join this committee. And then we'll hold off our vote until next week and see if Denise back to vacation. So Denise, do you want to kind of introduce yourself?
Sure. Oops, I'm sorry. I just need to shut that off. I take a pill every day at 8 o'clock. Okay, basically, I'm Denise Forbes. I live at 325 North Plain Road. I've been a resident of Housatonic for the last 11 years. We moved over here in 2010 from England. And when we came over, we had a B&B, and we basically ran it for 7 years before we realized we had to renovate it because of major issues. And we became very involved with the community further down the road when Fulbrook started coming in. And I met Michelle Levere, and we became more involved with what's going